Since the discovery of gold at Sutter's Mill in 1848, gold seekers have been panning streams and combing the hills in search of this elusive yellow treasure. In those days, you didn't need a degree in mining to determine where the gold was or how to mine it. Back then, the methods for washing gold was relatively simple. All a miner needed was a pick and shovel, a pan, and a rocker box to effectively work his claim. Well, that holds true even today, especially for the recreational miner. You can prospect and recover gold without putting out a lot of hard-earned cash using the same methods as the 49ers. Or you can take advantage of today's mining technology and choose from a wide range of gold recovery equipment that's designed especially for the recreational miner. One of the great things about this type of outdoor activity is that it appeals to all ages, and the rewards are far more than gold in the pan. But I must admit, finding your first gold nugget in the bottom of your pan really gets the old adrenaline going. And for a lot of folks, that's when gold fever sets in. Some miners say the best way to make a small fortune mining gold is to start with a big one. Well, nevertheless, in this program, we're going to provide you with some valuable how-to information on recreational gold mining and prospecting. And then you can decide just how much money you want to spend doing it. For the novice miner and prospector, knowing where to begin is often more difficult than finding gold itself. Research should be foremost in the mind of the beginner. There's plenty of information available if you know where to look. Good research will save you time and money, and it will increase your chance of success. For example, there are plenty of trade magazines on the market that deal specifically with prospecting and extracting precious metals. Your library will also have books on precious metals, geology, and in many cases, topographic maps of the area you're interested in. The Bureau of Land Management and the National Forest Service can provide you with regulations, permits, and guidelines for prospecting and mining on federal lands. Your State Department of Minerals and Mining will have geological surveys that will show you the types and known locations of lode and placer deposits. One sure way of increasing your chances of locating gold is to work in known gold-bearing areas. Another important consideration is to know the regulations before you begin mining. Some states have restrictions on the sizes of dredges, their use, and when they can be used. Now, once you've determined what area you're going to mine or prospect, you want to be sure it's not on someone else's valid claim. You can determine if the area is already claimed by checking with the county clerk's office. If the area in question is on federal lands, you must first determine who controls the land, the Bureau of Land Management or the National Forest Service. Then check their records concerning current and expired claims. One of the best ways to learn prospecting and mining techniques is by doing it with someone who already has experience and the know-how. If you can't find someone to teach you, consider joining a club. The Gold Prospectors Club of America is just one example of a club that offers members all kinds of helpful information. Members can attend nationwide outings, receive monthly publications, discounts, and a mining guide to claims throughout the country. Claims that you can work and keep all the gold you find without fear of trespassing. And there are clubs that offer mining on private claims. Some provide full-service camping, but one thing they all have in common is plenty of tales on mining experiences, and more often than not, they're willing to share this information with just about anyone who'll lend an ear. Now let's talk briefly about this elusive yellow metal called gold. Gold is an extremely valuable metal. Gold is about 6 times heavier than the average materials that are normally found with it. And gold is a very heavy element. With a specific gravity of 19.6, placer gold will eventually find its way to the lowest point, such as the cracks and crevices in bedrock or false bedrock layers. Gold is a soft mineral that will flatten or bend. Gold never shatters. There are a number of tests one can make to determine whether you have gold or some other mineral. For example, a magnet will not affect gold. And if it looks like gold but shatters, it's probably iron pyrite, or more commonly known as fool's gold. Placer gold comes in a variety of shapes and sizes, from nuggets to flakes, grains, powder, and even microscopic. Now, before we go any farther, let's talk briefly about some of the terms that are commonly associated with gold mining and geology. What is lode gold? Gold found in this fashion will be in a deposit or vein. It's also known as in-place gold. Lode gold is mined by sinking a shaft or tunnel, and without a doubt, it is the most strenuous method of mining. Placer gold. A placer deposit of gold is found with concentrations of sand, gravel, silt, and or boulders. Gold found in this manner has been separated from a lode vein, generally through erosion or some other natural occurrence. Placer examples include stream, bench, alluvial, desert, beach, glacial, and residual placers, just to name a few. Now, a lot of people mistakenly relate all placer deposits with streams or river placers only. In this video, we will be concentrating on placer mining methods and equipment. Black sand is a mineral that you will become well acquainted with. Black sand is usually a composite of magnetite, hornblende, hematite, and possibly other minerals. Black sand is very heavy, and it's found with gold. The term concentrates, for lack of a better description, is the material that is reduced down from overburden by panning, dredging, dry washing, or other mining techniques. Concentrates are further worked to separate the remaining gold from the black sands. In mining, the word overburden best describes accumulations of silt, sand, and gravel that accumulate at the bottom of a stream on top of the bedrock. Gold, if present, will usually be found in the cracks and crevices at bedrock. Bedrock is the solid layer of rock underlying the gravel, sand, and clay which placer gold rests. You will also hear the term false bedrock. Occasionally you will encounter hard formations that will be above true bedrock. This is commonly known as false bedrock. False bedrock can be comprised of clay, caliche, and even tight gravel formations, all of which placer gold deposits can be found resting on. Occasionally more than one layer may exist above true bedrock. Now let's talk briefly about the characteristics of gold. Most gold found in today's stream beds has originated from a vein or lode. Now, generally speaking, there are 5 different types of gold deposits. A lode deposit is a hard rock mineral vein within the Earth's crust. Gold-bearing veins often appear at the surface in rock outcroppings. Now, the area immediately below the lode vein is called a residual deposit. This is where the minerals have eroded from the vein but have not traveled away from the primary lode location. The next deposit in the sequence is called an alluvial deposit. An alluvial deposit occurs when the minerals have moved down and away from the lode vein through gravity, the effects of nature, wind, rain, erosion, etc., but at this point have not reached a waterway. As these minerals occur in the alluvial position, they will begin to spread out as they descend downward and away from the lode deposit. Next, we have what is known as a bench deposit. Bench deposits are mineral deposits that are formed in old stream beds that are high and dry now and are well above the waterline. These areas can be prime spots for high banking operations, which we will discuss later. And last, we have stream deposits. These are deposits that are formed in our present-day creeks, streams, and rivers. Gold will be deposited in a stream bed in a specific manner, primarily due to its weight. During flooding or periods of high runoff, all or part of the stream can be put into motion, from the top to the bottom, depending on the velocity of the water. Now, because gold is considerably heavier than the sediment surrounding it, the gold will work its way down and move along the bottom. As the gold travels along the bottom, it will become trapped in the bedrock, specifically in the cracks and crevices. Now, rough-shaped bedrock will trap and hold more gold than smooth bedrock. Large boulders can also create pockets of resistance that can trap gold. Any sizable object in the stream that interrupts the normal current flow can trap gold. As gold moves downstream, it will continue to travel until there's a change in the current speed, at which time the gold will quickly drop and remain there until the forces of nature disrupts the bottom of the stream bed or some lucky miner finds it. The path that gold follows is much more predictable in larger rivers and streams. Normally, the path gold travels is to the inside of a bend, and for the most part, in a straight line between the bends. As a result, the more gold will be deposited along a specific path. Now, in regards to creeks and small streams, the paths that gold will follow are much less predictable, for the most part, due to the steeper gradient. Pay streaks or large deposits of gold occur when there is a rapid change in the water's velocity. Pay streaks will form in areas such as below rapids where the water slows, where the river widens quickly, and behind large midstream obstructions, but always along the path that gold normally follows in a larger stream or river. Another prime spot, especially in larger streams and rivers, is at the inside of a tail end of a bend. The downstream force of the water is considerably greater to the outside, and the inside velocity is much slower. As a result, the gold will drop and form deposits on the inside. Smaller deposits will be more common in slow-moving water areas, behind boulders, in cracks and crevices of the bedrock, and so on. Now let's talk briefly about panning. For the beginner, gold panning can be a frustrating experience. Purchasing a pan, dipping it into a stream and sloshing it around does not take a great deal of know-how. On the other hand, knowing just where to dip it and how to slosh it can mean the difference between success and failure. Using a gold pan exclusively is the least expensive method of mining one can do. The only drawback is the amount of materials that can be panned in a given day. But regardless of your choice of mining methods, you will need to know how to use a pan correctly. Most gold pans used today are made of plastic. They're lightweight and very durable. Plastic gold pans are also preferred by miners when working in cold water, since the metal pans transfer the cold to the hands much quicker, and they are colder to work with. Most of the plastic pans on the market today have a trap and a riffle system in the bottom to trap and hold the gold during the panning process. The pan is also the preferred tool for prospectors who are sampling for gold before heavier and more sophisticated equipment is brought in. The gold pan is also used in conjunction with other types of mining equipment, such as high bankers, dredges, and dry washers in the final recovery process. Now, before we get into panning techniques, there's a few more items you will need for panning and prospecting for gold. First, you'll need a bottle snifter. This is for sucking out the small gold flakes off the bottom of the pan. A tweezers for picking out the larger gold nuggets. A magnifying glass, a funnel, a sample bottle for storing gold, preferably plastic, a pick, a shovel, and a 5-gallon bucket, and a selection of screens for working down the concentrates. You'll also need a small magnet to separate the black sands from the gold once you've concentrated the materials to that point. A wetting agent is another item that will come in handy. This is used to eliminate surface water tension and will help prevent the fine gold from floating away during the panning process. Now that we have an idea of the tools we need, let's go panning. First, you'll want to look for a spot that is likely to trap and hold gold. Along the stream bank, under roots, on the inside edge of a bend in the stream, behind large rocks in the stream bed, or on bench areas where the water has left the old stream bed high and dry. These are all good spots to check out in known gold-bearing areas. Now, once you've located a spot to sample, put the classifier screen in the pan and fill the pan about 3/4 full of material. Then look for a spot in the stream that has at least 6 inches of water and a moderate flow. The water should be moving just fast enough to pull the muddy water off the pan and still allow for good visibility. You should find a spot where you can sit down or kneel to take the pressure off your back. Now, with the pan level in the water, stir the materials and break up any clumps of clay or mud, working the smaller materials through the screen. After checking for nuggets, toss the excess materials aside. Now stir the materials, putting them in a state of motion. Now shake the pan and allow the heavier concentrated materials to settle to the bottom. Next, we'll wash off the lighter sand and small gravel by holding the pan under the water and tilt it slightly forward. Now begin to swirl the water from one side to the other with a slight forward tossing motion, using just enough force to work the lighter sands and the gravel out over the edge of the pan. You'll also want to level the pan and shake it occasionally. This will help settle the heavier materials to the bottom and bring the lighter materials to the surface. Repeat the panning and settling procedures until you have about 1 cup to 1.5 cups of concentrates left in the pan. Once this is done, raise the pan out of the water, keeping about 1 inch or so of water covering the concentrates. Then tilt the pan forward and swirl the water around, checking for larger pieces of gold that can be picked out with the tweezers. Then you can return to the water and continue to concentrate the materials even further. Some prefer to do the final recovery process over a larger pan or tub that can catch any gold that might float off the pan. Now, once you've concentrated the materials down to a few ounces, you can use the magnet to extract much of the black sands that will be mixed with the gold. Of course, if you're using a metal pan, this procedure won't work. This is where the plastic pan is a real advantage. Once you've removed most of the black sands, turn the pan around to the smooth side and begin the back panning process. This is done quite easily by retaining a small amount of water in the pan, then tilting the pan slightly and tapping the side of the pan to concentrate the gold to the bottom corner of the pan. As you back pan, tilt the pan up slightly so the end of the pan with the gold will be higher. Then swirl the water around to expose the gold. Now you can use the snifter bottle to suck up the gold. Once you've concentrated the materials down as far as possible using your pan, you have a number of options for final recovery of the remaining gold fines, 2 of which we will demonstrate in this program: the separator pan and the spiral concentrator. These are probably the safest and most popular, and they recover just as much gold as any other process. The separator pan is designed for quick recovery of gold from your concentrates. It's made of lightweight plastic and fits tightly on top of a standard 5-gallon bucket. When using this type of separator, the concentrates must be pre-classified to a 20 and 30 mesh screen, and each size should be run separately. Once the pan is placed on the bucket, turn the water on slowly from the source, which could be from a garden hose, a DC recirculating pump, or from a flusher attachment on a dredge. The separator pan must be leveled to the point where there is even water level around the outer edge. Then adjust the water level to within 3/4 to 1/2 inch from the top of the pan for recovery of fine gold. Now gradually add concentrates around the outer edge, about a tablespoon per minute, but slow enough to avoid buildup around the cone. Occasionally you shut down and remove the fine gold. It's a good idea to run the concentrates through a second time to ensure full recovery of all the gold. This is a simple but effective piece of final gold recovery equipment that fits any pocketbook. For those who prefer a faster method of gold recovery, there's the automatic gold panning machine such as this one by Camel Mining Products. This device can be used as a concentrator or a separator. The spirals on the wheel pick up the gold 7 times per revolution of the wheel. This is a lightweight and fully self-contained unit. Any small battery capable of 2 amp output at 12 volts can power the machine. Once the machine is set up and the wheel is rotating, add a few drops of wetting agents to the water. This will keep small gold particles from floating due to the surface tension on the water. You can counter the effects of oil on your gold by using a wetting agent to stop the flotation of oily gold. The same holds true for when you're using the gold pan. Put a drop or two in the pan during final recovery. Always keep oily substances away from concentrates. Gold is usually pure in nature, and being a metal, it has a natural affinity for oil. Now while the wheel is rotating, feed the sands into the bottom of the wheel at about 7 o'clock. The ore should begin climbing the wheel. The water flow and the pitch of the wheel should be adjusted so that the sand is stopping at about 1 inch below the center hole. You should be separating the gold from the sand at this point, and the gold should be accumulating in the cup in the back of the drive unit. You can feed the ore in gradually, about 1 pound a minute for most ores. The excess tailings will slough out over the edge and fall into the water. This spiral separator uses specific gravity differences between the gold and the sand to allow for mechanical separation of the two materials. This machine is also an excellent tool for prospectors and geologists who need to sample concentrates in the field for quick results. Another note to remember, always be suspicious of anything that won't separate from the gold in your panning machine. Remember, anything more than 10 times the weight of water is worth something. Lead and black sands are about 5 to 7 times the weight of water, and some black sands carry platinum. Platinum, which occurs as a black sand, is almost as heavy as gold, and it's worth much more. The sluice box is the next step up from the gold pan, and it is often used in conjunction with the pan to retrieve finer gold flakes. Another distinct advantage of the sluice box is that a miner can process considerably more material in a shorter period of time than with a pan. The sluice box is lightweight, easy to set up and operate, and it's affordable. This model has an expanded metal screen attached to the riffles for ease of operation. Beneath the screen is a riffled carpet, which also aids in trapping the finer gold particles. Most riffle boxes are similar to those found on larger dredges. Ranging from 10 to 20 pounds in weight, depending on the size, the riffle box is an excellent tool for prospecting, sampling, and gold recovery in remote areas. Operation and setup of the sluice box is quick and easy. First, you find a spot in the stream where the water is flowing at the right speed. If the water is flowing too fast, it will wash the gold out. Too slow, and the riffles will fill up with material and make gold recovery ineffective. Now, once you've found a spot to set up, place the box in the stream at an angle of roughly 1 inch per foot of the total length of the box. For example, if the box is 3 feet long, raise the receiving end of the box 3 inches. Riffle boxes vary in size depending on the make and model. Once the box is set up at the proper angle, the slope will allow the water to carry the lighter materials through the system and out the end of the box, leaving heavier gold trapped behind the riffles. You'll want to make sure that the box is horizontally level. Sloping to one side or another will result in less trapped gold. If the box is set up and operating correctly, most of the gold will be trapped behind the first 2 or 3 riffles. The box should be positioned in the water so that the top of the box is about 1 inch below the water line. Another point to remember is to set the box in a location so that tailings can run off and not build up directly behind the box. Once the box is set up in place, you can take a bucket of materials gathered from the bank or stream bottom and pour them into the upper end of the box, in the center above the first riffle. You'll need to adjust your rate of pour with the flow. If your box is set up and operating properly, you can process a 5-gallon bucket of materials in about 3 to 4 minutes. One way of checking to see if the riffles are working correctly is by using a piece of plexiglass as a view plate. Place the view plate at the lower end of the box with the front of the plate tilted down slightly. Then slowly move the plate along the bottom, up the riffles toward the front. The concentrated material should be tumbling behind the riffles when the system is operating properly. This method can also be used to check the riffle system periodically for gold while sluicing, rather than removing the box from the water. Cleanup is done by placing a bucket at the end of the sluice box, then lifting the riffles and sliding the carpet into the bucket. The carpet is then washed and the unit reassembled. Now be sure to rinse out the sluice box to wash out any remaining fine gold that may have been trapped under the carpet. The concentrates are then panned further or kept for final recovery at a later time. The amount of materials you can run through a sluice box of this type in 1 hour is about the same amount you could pan in a day. Now here's another little mining and sampling device, the mini rocker. It's a time-proven idea recreated for today's prospector. The mini rocker is small enough for prospecting and large enough to produce with. It's compact and lightweight for easy carrying and backpacking. To use the mini rocker, set it up on a flat surface. Then fill the hopper with material. As the water is added, gently rock the box until all the sand and gravel has been washed through the screen and out of the rocker. This process is repeated until about 3/4 of the carpet is covered with black sand and hopefully gold. Cleanup is done simply by removing the carpet and rinsing out the rocker bed. The concentrates can be further panned or run through a mechanical separator. Today's advanced technology has without a doubt revolutionized recreational mining. There are more people heading to the mountains and rivers in search of gold, either for recreation or as a hobby, than ever before. Many have foregone the romance and tradition of early miners, setting aside the pan and opting for easier and more effective ways to retrieve gold, such as this pack rat dredge. This mini dredge weighs less than 30 pounds and is the ultimate in portability. Just about anyone with a strong back and a little determination can now prospect and mine gold in some of the most remote regions, areas that are often overlooked or passed up because of obvious difficulties. This 1.5-inch dredge obviously has its limitations for moving large amounts of overburden in a short time. Although its portability was intended for use in areas of limited access, many of today's recreational miners and prospectors are comfortable with using this smaller dredge for all their mining. Small streams with low water volumes usually cannot be worked with large dredges unless there's an alternative water source. On the other hand, the pack rat dredge does quite well in these limited flow situations, allowing the miner to effectively work placer deposits. This model comes equipped with a 2-cycle self-priming engine and a pump system which is capable of pumping about 27 gallons of water per minute. The aluminum sluice header box and riffle system is both rugged and lightweight. The pack rat riffle system has amazed even the sourdoughs with its effectiveness for settling out even the finest gold. Once you've located a spot where you want to work, the setup and operation of the dredge is relatively easy. Position the dredge box on or near the water so the suction hose will reach the area you're going to work. The engine must be close enough to deep water to submerge the foot valve completely. You might want to dig out a spot to ensure enough depth. The dredge box should be set at an incline of about 1-inch rise per foot. Before starting the engine, the pump must be primed by filling it with water. As the suction nozzle is submerged into the stream, the water flow over the riffle system will increase. When the nozzle is run over the stream bottom, rocks, sand, dirt, and hopefully gold will flow through the suction hose to the dredge box. If rocks begin to pile up on the riffles, simply increase the angle of the dredge. If you notice black sand passing through the riffle box, then decrease the angle. Experience will dictate the proper angle for the area you're working in. Once your dredge is set up and operating properly, most if not all of the gold recovered will be settled in the front of the first few riffles. Always keep in mind, gold is a very heavy element, so the gold you're seeking will most likely be found on bedrock, clay, or some other type of hardpack that is preventing the gold from settling deeper. You'll also want to check your dredge periodically for traces of gold. As a rule of thumb, the smaller the dredge, the more often you should clean up. Whereas with larger dredges, cleanup might be only necessary at the end of the day. Cleanup is a relatively simple procedure. First, shut the engine down and lift up the riffle attachment. Then carefully slide the miner's carpet out into a pan or bucket. Then start the engine and run it at idle speed. This will push enough water through the sluice to wash out any remaining concentrates. Once the cleanup is done, insert the miner's carpet, lower the riffles, and you're ready to continue dredging. Another innovation that has evolved for use with the pack rat dredge is the high banker attachment. This dredge can easily be modified and used as a high banker simply by adding components and making a few adaptations. The high banker is just a ticket for testing and working high bench placers that are not adjacent to a water source. Operation and cleanup are essentially the same as with a standard dredge, except the materials are fed into a grizzly box that is attached to the head end of the riffle system. The grizzly box acts as a classifier by reducing the larger gravels down to concentrates that ultimately pass over the riffles and through the box. A hose with a spray nozzle aids in washing gravels and clay through the grizzly stream. As with the pack rat dredge, the high banker attachment is lightweight and portable, allowing the user the flexibility of working small streams and bench placers in remote areas that are often passed up or overlooked by the weekend prospector. The suction dredge is an extremely versatile piece of mining equipment. It comes in a wide range of sizes, and it's used in recreational as well as commercial mining operations. One of the main advantages of the suction dredge is that it can process considerably more material than most types of mining equipment. And if you're dredging in the right spot, that relates to more gold. The medium to large dredges are preferred when working large streams and rivers where the water flow is sufficient to operate the dredge effectively. They're also much more effective in gold-bearing waterways that require moving large amounts of overburden in order to get down to bedrock formations. But regardless of the size, a dredge is comprised of an engine, a pump, suction hoses, and a riffle box to trap the gold. The riffle box is designed and performs similar to the sluice box, except it is capable of processing more materials in a shorter amount of time. Some dredges are mounted on pontoons so they can be moved about the stream during the operation with little effort, while others can be set up on the bank or close to the water. Regardless of the type, they all do the same job. Now, when setting the dredge up for operation, the engine and pump will have to be placed near the water source so the suction hose will be within reach of the area to be worked. The engine and pump must also be placed near the water that has sufficient depth to fully submerge the foot valve located at the end of the suction hose. Now, as with any type of sluice box operation, mechanical or manual, the sluice box must be set on an incline of about 1 inch rise per foot of the length of the sluice box. This will allow the materials to flow through the system without piling up on the riffles. Now, before starting the engine, the pump must be filled or primed with water. This can be done quite easily by working the foot valve at the end of the hose back and forth while submerged. Now you're ready to start the engine and begin dredging. As you work the suction nozzle along the stream bed, an increased water flow will be noticed in the riffle box. At this point, rocks, sand, dirt, and hopefully gold will flow through the suction hose to the riffle box. If rocks begin to pile up on the riffles, increase the angle of the box slightly. If you notice black sands passing through the box, decrease the angle slightly. You might also have to adjust the engine speed until you have the correct water flow to trap gold. You can check and see if the riffles are working properly by using the plexiglass as we did with the sluice box. If the area you're dredging has finer gold deposits, you'll probably have to slow the pump down in order to recover them. Another point to remember is not to run any pump engine at full throttle. This will shorten the life of the engine considerably. Recreational or non-commercial dredges vary in size from 1.5 to 8 inches. The size is based on the diameter of the intake of the suction hose nozzle. Regardless of the size of the dredge you're using, you'll have to obtain a dredging permit when working state, federal, or national forest waterways. Some states restrict dredging to specific times of the year, while others not permitting dredging in some areas at all. The dredge is not restricted to working solely within the stream bed. With an attachment of a few hoses and a water source within 150 feet, depending on the incline from the water source, a miner can perform what is known as a dry dredge operation. In this situation, the water is pumped to the dredge and an auxiliary hose is used to wash down the hole. This water, combined with the water that comes through the suction nozzle, will allow you to gradually work the hole and pump the materials to the riffle box for separation. This is a good method for working high bench plasters and areas adjacent to the waterway. Most stream dredging operations occur in areas that are likely to trap and hold gold as it works its way downstream. Good places to check out are spots in front of and directly behind large boulders, or on the inside edge of a bend in the stream. As a rule, when dredging in waters controlled by state or federal agencies, dredging operations are restricted to the main stream bed so as not to damage the stream banks. But regardless of where you dredge, it's considered good advice to reclaim the work area before moving on, minimizing any environmental impact. Cleanup of larger dredges is generally done at the end of the day or before relocating the dredge. Generally, the operator will let the dredge run for a few minutes to wash the excess materials through the sluice box before turning off the engine. Once that is done, check the riffles for larger pieces of gold. Almost all of the gold, large or small, will be found at the head of the first 2 or 3 riffles if the dredge is set up and operating properly. Next, lift the riffle tray and slide or roll the miner's carpet into a bucket or tub that is placed at the end of the sluice box. Be sure to flush the sluice box out before removing the tub. This will remove any fine gold that still may be left behind in the box. Once you have washed the carpet out thoroughly, you can reassemble the riffle system again, and you're ready to dredge. The concentrates can then be panned or worked down with a mechanical separator. Versatility best describes this next piece of gold recovery equipment, the dual-purpose concentrator. This unit combines the features of a suction dredge and the flexibility of a hydraulic concentrator. When water is close at hand, it is used as a dredge box to suck up the gold-bearing materials from the stream bed. And when the placer deposits are some distance from the water, such as this high bench, the pump is placed at the water's edge and the concentrator box is positioned at the area to be worked. The dual-purpose concentrator comes equipped with a 3-horsepower engine and a 2-stage concentrator box, which is actually a classifier section and a riffled sluice section. The DPC can quickly be transformed from a dredging to a hydraulic concentrator capability by changing the flange and connecting the pump directly to the box. Cleanup of the dual-purpose concentrator is done in the same manner as with any other dredge with a sluice box. Concentrates are then panned by hand or mechanically separated to recover the finer gold flakes. Let's move on now to another machine that does an excellent job of gold recovery, the high banker. The high bank machine also seconds as a dredge, and it can be used from the water's edge up to high bench placers. And with today's pump systems, the control of the water flow through the sluice is smoother and more efficient. This allows for better gold recovery. When set up for a high banking operation, the grizzly box is positioned at the head end of the riffle box. A spray bar mounted in the grizzly box can be adjusted to wash any type of materials that are fed into the box, from loose gravels to hard-packed clay. Materials are shoveled into the box, and the water spray breaks down the softer materials which fall through the grizzly bars and continue through the sluice system. When handling larger rocks that won't pass through the grizzly bars, be sure to wash off all clay and mud before discarding. They could have small gold flakes stuck to them. The larger gravels and rocks are classified by the grizzly bar and are discarded through the rear of the hopper box. A high banker dredge with a 5-horsepower engine can pump and work effectively up to about 200 feet away from the water source, with about a 30-foot rise above the stream bed. This capability gives the miner a lot of flexibility and range to work placers well above the waterline, areas that might normally go untouched. Cleanup of the high banker is done as with any other type of sluice box operation. This particular high banker model can also be adapted to operate as a shallow water dredge, simply by adding a few minor components and the removal of the grizzly box. There's a lot of equipment and technology available for today's miner, so I suggest that before you purchase any equipment, it would be wise to know where you're going to mine and what type of mining you're going to do. If the area you're going to mine has plenty of water, then you might want to consider buying a high banker dredge. But if you're going to mine areas that have limited water sources, such as the desert or high plains, a dry wash machine would be your best choice. Dry washing is one of the most preferred methods of gold recovery used in desert conditions. The dry washer is primarily used as a concentrator of raw materials, and it can be used just about anywhere as long as the materials that are fed through the screen are relatively dry. Now, once you've determined that the area you're going to mine has gold-bearing possibilities, you'll want to check out such places as old stream beds, dry washes, and bench placers. These are all good places to dry wash for gold and silver. The electrostatic dry washer operates through vibration and high-velocity air that is created by a blower. The heated air is passed through the concentrator, generating an electrostatic charge that attracts the gold. A high static fan creates additional electrostatic action, which aids in the attraction of fine gold particles. When setting up your dry washer, be sure to position the motor upwind from the separator unit. As you can imagine, it can be pretty dusty during this recovery process. Once the machine is assembled and in place, it must be level as possible so the materials fed into the washer can flow over the riffles evenly. Operation is simple from that point on. Materials are tossed onto the grizzly screen. The classified materials pass through the screen onto the tray. The material then moves down the tray and falls onto the riffle box. At this point, the constant vibration combined with the air lifting the materials, except the heavier metals such as gold and silver, the lighter materials will be moved through the riffle box and out the end. As a rule, the gold will be trapped behind the first 2 or 3 riffles if the unit is set up and running properly. Now, to clean up the unit, place a tub or bucket at the end of the riffle box. Lift the riffle unit and shake or brush the materials into the container. The concentrates are now ready for further processing. When dry washing in areas that have little or no water, be sure to take enough water with you to pan the concentrates. Dry washers are most effective when the materials being processed are dry. If the soil is slightly damp, you can run the tailings through the dry washer again. With each pass, the materials become drier. Another innovation to recreational mining in recent years has been the vac pack. The vac pack is simply what it implies. It's a wet-dry, motor-powered vacuum machine that is used primarily for crevicing, but it's not limited to that alone. Crevicing for gold is a very common but small-scale method of recreational mining. This procedure is done quite simply by removing materials from cracks and crevices in and around bedrock along streams and rivers, rock outcroppings on hillsides, or any place that can trap and hold gold. Crevicing is actually another method for prospecting for gold-bearing deposits. But the recreational miner has found that crevicing and the backpack can be a relatively inexpensive method for retrieving precious metals such as gold and silver. Using the backpack to work up crevice materials is much more efficient than the conventional method of a whisk broom and pan. The vac leaves little, if any, material behind. Aside from the vac pack, you'll need some additional crevice tools to work with. A hammer, pry bar, and a screwdriver will come in handy for working cracks and crevices. Before the vacuum, the whisk broom and pan was the preferred method of dirt recovery. Aside from prospecting and crevicing with the backpack, it has other uses that can speed up the gold recovery process. For example, the vac pack can be used to vac out riffle boxes rather than disassemble the sluice box during dredging and dry washing operations. When dredging, the operator can stop the water flow and vacuum the riffles out periodically. Then continue dredging. The vac pack concentrates are panned later. Although the vac is considered a wet-dry unit, you cannot vacuum underwater crevices. Moisture is limited to damp materials only, and the vac pack is most effective when working dry to slightly damp areas. Cleanup of the vac pack is done by panning the materials down to concentrates or running the materials through a dry washer or sluice system to further concentrate the materials for final gold recovery. When we hear the words metal detector, most people think of finding buried treasure, old coins, artifacts, and the like. Well, that holds true even today, as most metal detectors that are purchased are bought for that reason. But with the advances in new technology, electronic mining is now carving its own niche in the field of recreational mining. There are a number of metal detectors and probes on the market today, but we will be focusing on detectors designed specifically for prospecting and locating gold and other precious metals. Metal detectors are designed to isolate and pinpoint a target's precise location and depth. Of course, the top-of-the-line models with all the whistles and bells can be used for all types of detection, from treasure hunting to precious metals. Regardless of the cost of a metal detector, the signal strength is the same. The real differences will come in the detector's ability to discriminate and cancel out unwanted objects, and allow the user to effectively work in highly mineralized ground that may have gold-bearing placers. A metal detector is comprised of a stem on which the control box is mounted, a cable, and the search coil. Some detectors allow the box to be removed from the stem and carried on the belt or chest. Although most detectors are relatively light, this option to redistribute the weight is preferred by serious prospectors who spend hours in the field searching for nuggets. The size and design of the search loop is also important. Smaller search coils are designed specifically for the prospector. They are more sensitive and give a stronger signal response. Generally speaking, the loop that comes with the detector will be good enough for most applications. It is advisable, however, to talk with the dealer and determine what size loops would be best suited for your needs. He may suggest more than one loop size. The standard loop size for prospecting is between 7 and 10 inches. Most detectors that are designed solely for prospecting are equipped with waterproof search coils for working stream beds in shallow water areas. Care must be given to the control box to prevent any moisture from entering under any circumstance. Prospectors who use metal detectors are often called nugget shooters, and those who have become proficient in the operation of their equipment and know where to search have become very successful. We won't get into the methods of fine-tuning a metal detector, since just about all makes and models require a slightly different procedure. Some are more user-friendly than others, but with a little practice, just about anyone can tune the instrument as the need arises. Now let's talk for a moment about where to search for gold with a detector. Actually, except for deep water areas, metal detectors can be used in the same places that you would normally prospect or mine for gold with other types of recovery equipment. Dry washes and creek beds are good places to shoot for nuggets in proven gold-bearing areas. Bench placers are another place to locate gold that is working its way down to streams. Working along the shorelines of rivers and streams, gravel bars, around large rocks and boulders, and especially on bedrock that is exposed or submerged. Also check cracks and crevices on the bedrock closely for trapped gold deposits. Tailing piles and reclaimed mine areas are another place to find nuggets that have been passed over, missed, or have been exposed to erosion in time. Keep in mind that metal detectors that are designed specifically to find gold can locate small flakes as well as nuggets, once they are balanced and tuned to the area being searched. Well, by now you should have at least some idea of what recreational mining is all about. And we have just scratched the surface. There's a lot of information out there and a lot of gold still to be found. Who knows, you might even find a nugget like this one found by a lady in Australia using a metal detector for the first time.